Woo!
right. So
Woohoo!
today, welcome, His former Secretary Elieen Velez-Vega. So Elieen Velez-Vega obtained a BS in Civil Engineering at the University of Puerto Rico and an MS at Mississippi State University, with experience from a variety of employers: Kimley Horn, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Walt Disney World. She was involved with big-scale projects as Puerto Rico's first former female Secretary of Transportation. After Hurricane Maria hit in 2017, she dedicated her knowledge and resources to help Puerto Rico recover. With the challenges of COVID-19, she has actively provided Puerto Rican airports with services. She is now currently working as a strategic infrastructure director at Kimley Horn. And with that being said, I would love to get it over to Elieen.
Perfect. Hi. Hola a todas from Puerto Rico. I'm going to share my screen so you can see my slides. And can you all see them? See, it's a little slow here, but
Yes.
I can tell that it's on, right? Yes. Good.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, well, let me put all this down so nobody has to see anything else over there. Okay, perfect. Well, let me know if you can or cannot hear me because now I can't see you all, but I know you're there. Okay.
We'll be on the lookout in the chat if you have any
Yes.
questions.
Perfect. Yes. And I love seeing the chat and the conversations. Tara Lee, Miss Mary know that that is one of the highlights, seeing everybody and what you guys are asking me. And please feel free to ask your questions. I would love to hear from you as well. So, mi nombre es Elieen Velez-Vega. I am from Puerto Rico. I am in Puerto Rico right now. It's kind of cloudy today, but it's a beautiful island. I recommend all of you put it on the bucket list to come visit us in Puerto Rico. And today, this talk, which I've been doing for the last 5 years, as Miss Mary reminded me. It's the power of perseverance and managing the unexpected. And I will tell you all my story, and I hope that you all like it and that you ask me a lot of questions. So, to start, and let's see, because this is like slow. There you go. To start, I always begin with this quote because I think it's pretty relevant to what we go through in life at any stage, and even when you're at school or when you're a professional. But life is what 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you react to it. Someone really smart said this, and I agree 1,000%. And I'm going to go through this presentation, and we will see why I believe that this is so true, and it also helps us stay positive. And also, if things don't go exactly as planned, something better will come along. So let's just keep that in mind. Well, women in STEM, and I know you've all had some very great things going on in this tech track. And I know that it is one of the my highlights of the summer because I've been doing it for 5 years. And I always want to share statistics about women in STEM. I'm a Latina, and Latinas still represent about 2 to 3% of the STEM workforce. And the STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, it can be sometimes intimidating and can also be lonely. But there are many organizations and more support nowadays for us to be able to have advocates and also excel and be successful in STEM. But many women actually did a lot of work for us so that we can be where we are today. This picture is always one that I like to share. This is from my University of Puerto Rico from probably 50 years ago. And you can tell because of the clothing that they're wearing. Nobody goes to the university in heels and skirts and with their hair done like that anymore. But it is a good picture to show us how far we've come and that the women that were there opening those doors and making strides for us. So there are definitely better, or we can do better in promoting women in STEM and getting those percentages and those numbers up. But we are definitely better than we were 50 years ago, but we still have a long way to go. So it's always good to know where we've been, where we are, and where we want to go. Definitely we are in the right direction, and I congratulate you all for being here in this program because you're learning what we do in engineering and what amazing opportunities you can have in STEM. So with that said, this is me. This is an older photo. My daughter is now 14. We were just discussing that. She was like 7 in this picture. But I am from Sabana Grande, Puerto Rico. So I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. I did get my bachelor's degree in civil engineering from the University of Puerto Rico at Maya West, and then my master's in civil engineering from Mississippi State University. And I will tell you how that happened and where I've been so you can see why those two very different universities but also still related to civil engineering. The man in that photo is my husband. He is also a civil engineer, and we met in college. So I have to thank my university for giving me all the knowledge in the world. And I also met my significant other, and we've been together for 22 years since we met in college. So wonderful things happened. I know that Tara Lee, when she introduced me, talked about internships, and I want to make sure that you all know, and it doesn't matter where you are in school, when you go to college and even in high school, there are now opportunities for you to work in different organizations and do internships, and you will see what you probably will be doing as a STEM professional in the different companies. It could be a state or federal agency, it can be a private company. When I was in college, I did two major internships. One was at the Walt Disney World College Program in Orlando, and the other one was at NASA Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama. While I was in high school, I did a lot of work. I was very active in student organizations and I volunteered a lot. I used to be a dancer as well. I was a folkloric ballet dancer. So I was part of the Department of Education program that promoted our folklore and our dances. So you always have to have a good balance between your technical work and also having a hobby or something that makes you happy. So dancing for me was making me happy. Also, all the work that I did in advanced classes and math and science, but I always kept that very artistic side because I like to dance and other different things. So I always like to say that because we have to be happy in all the areas of our lives. We have to be happy in the personal side and also in the side of school or in the side of work. So I was very involved in all those groups. I did go to space camp when I was in 10th grade and I was 14 years old. So keep that in mind. I have a story for all of you about space camp. I went to the close-up program as well. That's another program that I did in high school. That I went to Washington D.C. to learn about the U.S. government and how that works. And pretty much I took advantage of all these opportunities to understand that I really wanted to become an engineer. And working at Walt Disney World, I was in the characters and entertainment department. So I was Mickey Mouse friend, and that meant that I had a lot of fun, but it also meant that I got to work with an engineer at Disney. So when I worked in the engineer at Disney, I put that in my resume. And next summer in college in 2001, I applied for an internship at NASA. And thanks to the opportunity that I had at Walt Disney World, I was able to get and work at NASA for 2 years. So those are the pictures of me and my internships at Space Camp, at Disney. I met some amazing people from around the world, got to meet astronauts, got to work on advanced projects for space. So definitely the internships were life-changing for me in college and have been until today in my career. So all these different things that you do in high school and college do have a wonderful impact for your future. So I'm assuming that you all have heard about this throughout the program. What is engineering? This is my take on it. Engineering is the application of math and science to create something of value from our natural resources. It is the invisible profession because unless something doesn't go well, people will not think about the engineer or how good or bad that engineer was. We do everything in society, everything is linked to engineering, and we make really cool things. I talked to you all about what I did at Disney. I talked to you about what I did at NASA. You all probably have a cell phone, a computer. We work on the internet. We do, yeah, the parks, the Disney, everything around us, the airports, the buildings, the water that we get from the faucet every morning. All these different things are because an engineer is working behind these and they're making our lives easier. I became a civil engineer because our civil engineers or these civil engineers are the ones involved in everything that involves your quality of life. So that's why I became an engineer, particularly in transportation, because I believe transportation connects us all. So anyway, so I think that engineering, if any of you are considering it for the future, it is a great profession. Now, skills to become an engineer, and this is my daughter. You engineers are problem solvers. We have to be creative. We have to work well with others. We're always working in teams. There are no lone rangers. We have to be curious. We have to ask questions. So if you're one of those that ask a lot of questions in class or wonder, how is this built, or can I put this, can I take this apart and put it back together? Those are the very early stages of an engineer. We got to think big. No problem is too big or too small. And we have to be able to have good communication so our ideas can go out there and solve different problems. Now, I started my career with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. It is a military organization for the United States, and I worked as a research civil engineer. I worked around the world. I did research for airfield pavements. So I was working in different airports around the world, airfield military bases. I worked with the soldiers so that I could help them land their aircraft, their cargo aircraft, in places where there was no runways and where there was no access to just the normal airports that we all have. So it was a great opportunity for me to learn what the military does, travel different airports around the world and military bases around the world. And I became a airfield pavements engineer. And pretty much I was designing and I was doing research for how we could make the airports and the pavements better for the soldiers. After being 3 years in Vicksburg, Mississippi, because this was in Vicksburg, Mississippi, my husband and I decided to move closer to Puerto Rico, and I went to Kimley Horn. Kimley Horn is a consulting firm in West Palm Beach, Florida. And from there, I went to work for public airports, commercial airports, the airports that you all go and then fly over to different places to see your family or to go to different family trips. I love my job. Airports are a city. They're like a little city with everything that you would have in your town or in a big city like New York or California, where you are, Los Angeles. So the airports are cities where you will need to have an engineer that works with pavements, with lighting, with water, with environmental, with planning. So to me, an airport was a city, and I developed myself as an aviation engineer. I worked in the airports in South Florida, also in the Caribbean and in Latin America. And I started developing myself as a really strong airport engineer. So my superiors and my leaders saw that I wanted to be more involved in bigger projects. And so I started traveling and doing a lot of presentations and different conferences. And I got an award when I was less than 40 years old. The Aviation Business Magazine awarded me like the top 40 professionals in aviation in the nation under 40 years old. I'm not under 40 years old anymore, so I don't qualify for that. But that was a pretty amazing recognition for a young engineer. So after a few years of working in South Florida, I helped the company open an office in Puerto Rico. And in 2014, I relocated back to the island to manage the Puerto Rico office, which was my lifelong dream. I worked in the United States, in Mississippi for 3 years, and in West Palm Beach, Florida for 8 years. And I was able to come back to Puerto Rico to work in the island. I think one of the biggest recognitions or rewards that I've had in my professional career is being able to return to my island to give back everything that it gave me. I mean, I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. All my education for starting to be an engineer was here on the island. So I was very happy to be back. Now, coming back to Puerto Rico was very challenging. I look and sound young. So a lot of the times when I would go to meetings with clients or to meet some new potential clients, because we are a private firm, so we win projects, we write proposals and we win projects. People thought I was too young. People thought that I was a girl, like a little girl, or like the assistant of my boss or the assistant of someone. So it was very challenging to earn the respect because they always said, "Who's that girl?" or "She's too young," or "She looks too young." And so it took me a few years in Puerto Rico to establish myself as a serious and respected engineer that knew what she was doing. I was managing and I was directing, I was managing and leading the office in Puerto Rico, but I was also working on all the 10 airports on the island. And I was designing the runways and their taxiways and doing their pavement inspections so that the airplanes could land safely on the runways. And so little by little, people started seeing that she's not a girl, she's an engineer and she knows her stuff. And that took a lot of patience from me. And also it took probably 2 to 3 times working harder than anybody else to earn that respect as an engineer. That has happened before in my life. And I think that we have to educate people on who we are without fighting or without being arrogant, but letting our work and our ethics speak for us. And that I had to go through seriously when I moved here back to the island. Everybody thought that because I was from Puerto Rico, it was going to be really easy for me to integrate myself and winning all the work in Puerto Rico, but it wasn't. There was a little bit of reverse discrimination because I had been away from the island for 11 years. So I had to earn the respect of the local industry of engineering industry so that they would know that I was serious coming back to the island and I wanted to develop the company here in Puerto Rico and stay here and not earn money and then leave. So it took me a few years for that too. And I had to relearn Spanish because all my technical work had always been done in English and not in Spanish. And even though my first language is Espanol, I speak Spanish first and then English, I still had to learn how to speak the technical Spanish. And that took me a while as well. I did not think that was going to be difficult, but it was an adjustment. And so I think that because Puerto Rico in 2014 was having so many problems with the economy and with politics and just really hard times in Puerto Rico, I never expected how hard it would be to open the office in the island and be successful. But I didn't give up and things did move along and we hired more people and we made adjustments and I stayed on the island. I've been back now for 11 years since 2014. And I have to tell you all that the company has grown, our work has grown, and we are very happy here. My husband and I both decided to move back to Puerto Rico, and we've been here on the island for 11 years, and our daughter goes to school here. So I don't ever regret it, but I always let everybody know that it was a very risky decision and it was a big challenge to be able to establish myself in the engineering industry in Puerto Rico and be respected as an engineer. So after all that and having a lot of hard times establishing ourselves in Puerto Rico, in 2017 and September 20th, we had Hurricane Maria. Hurricane Maria was a Category 5 hurricane that destroyed the entire island. The picture you see on the screen is you're showing the eye of the hurricane coming in through the southeast of the island, and it went through diagonally through the whole island and it exited through the northwest corner. So it impacted the entire island. We were without electricity and power for about 6 months to a year. A lot of places still have a lot of issues with energy. We still are recovering. But in that time, as civil engineers, it was time to help Puerto Rico rebuild. So I started working on the rebuild of the shopping centers and the supermarkets and the banks and all the areas where people needed to get supplies. I had a lot of help from our company in Florida. They came with water and batteries and flashlights and a lot of equipment to help us in the island because we didn't have a lot of resources available to be able to support our clients and our work. The other thing that I did was get in touch with an organization that was called Together We Are More Powerful, Juntos Somos Más Fuertes. And we started helping communities around the island, taking them supplies and medical staff and like psychiatrists and doctors, even barbers and stylists, so they could cut their hair, people that could help them look for financial aid. So we started doing this community service work as volunteers around the island. And I decided that because I was a civil engineer, I would teach kids about STEM and do activities with them, gun drop domes and bridges and different activities so that the kids would be with me and my husband while their parents got help from the doctors or the people that were there helping them with financial aid. So that was a good opportunity for even in crisis, let kids know that there's so much more we could do. And even in times of crisis and emergencies, we try to keep the children occupied and happy while we taught them about STEM. So that was a great opportunity for me to do much more than just engineering work after Hurricane Maria, but also help out the communities. Now we all know that COVID happened in 2020. So after we were starting to recover from Hurricane Maria, we had the pandemic and we all went home and didn't have access to the office or anything else. We also had earthquakes in 2020 in Puerto Rico. So we have definitely had our trials here on the island, and we become very strong engineers and scientists because we've had to. So I think that in Puerto Rico, we are very resilient and we know how to appreciate a lot of the great things in life because we've had so many trials and challenges. Now, in 2020, in November, while we were in COVID, I did get a very unexpected call before Thanksgiving. A friend called and asked me to submit my resume for the new governor that had won the elections in November of 2020. And she said that she wanted me to be considered for Secretary of the Department of Transportation. As you all know my story, I was an engineer working in a private company. Never had I been working for the government as a political person or working with a governor. I always had my work as an engineer. Well, on December 7th, of 2020, I became the first woman to lead the Department of Transportation and Public Works of Puerto Rico. This agency had a 105-year history And in all that history, they had never had a woman engineer leading the department. Now, this is the department that is in charge of the transportation in Puerto Rico, of everything and every service that you can imagine that a transportation agency has to provide. It was a big undertake. The governor announced me on December 7th, and the next day, the national newspaper had my face in the front page, telling everybody who I was. So I became a public figure. I was not a person in my house anymore that nobody knew. My husband and my daughter and all our lives changed, but it was a great opportunity. I took it as an honor, and I also did it because I thought I came to Puerto Rico to help, and I also a very big advocate for women in engineering. So I knew that becoming the first woman to lead this department was also a huge step for women being able to be considered for these important positions, and that the women we are supposed to be in these places where the important decisions are being made. We should be at these places. We should be considered. Our diversity and our different perspective and the way that we handle problems and solve problems are important for every government and for every agency to have us in their leadership. So women definitely belong in these places where important decisions are being made. And I was opening the door for many more women to come after me. I might have been the first woman to lead the department, but I'm definitely not going to be the last, and I know that. The picture down on the bottom right, that is the gallery of the past secretaries. In December of 2024, because this position was a 4-year position, I was a political appointee from January 4th of 2021 until December 31st of 2024, so about 5 months ago. That picture on the bottom is my photo in the gallery of past secretaries. It is the first time in history that there is a color photo in the gallery, and it's also the first woman in the gallery. So my family was there with me. My daughter was actually the one that put the picture up there, and it was an amazing feeling to see my picture in color and also the first woman to go into the gallery of past secretaries. I'm sure there will be many more after me. So what did I do as Secretary of Transportation? Well, this is the network of Puerto Rico's roadways. If you look at it, it's very busy. It is also very crowded. We are one of the most dense jurisdictions in the world with numbers of roads and area. We're only 100 miles by 35 miles, a very small island in the Caribbean. But we have the most roads in the world with comparison with our area or with our geographic area. So there's a lot of challenges. There's a lot of mountains in the middle of the island, and then we have the coastal areas. Because of the hurricane, we had a lot of landslides. So we had about 40,000 landslides after Hurricane Maria, and coastal erosion because of sea rise and climate change. So we've definitely have our challenges in dealing with our transportation and making sure that we have infrastructure that's adequate and safe for the drivers and the people that live in Puerto Rico. So that was my biggest challenge. I worked with 7 agencies, about 4,000 employees, over 3,000 employees. We had the maritime, the ferries, we had the train, we had the buses, we had public works, so that maintenance was done in the roads. We had roads and bridges and construction, and we also had the DMV. So everybody in Puerto Rico that had a license during those 4 years that was renovating their license had my signature on their license, including my nephew. So it was definitely a life-changing experience for me. I was in the media a lot, talking about the work that we had done. We focused on emergency management and disaster recovery. So a lot of the work that I did was making sure Puerto Rico had the money and federal funds to be able to do all these projects that are needed so that our roads are safer. We had reduction of road fatalities. We had increased budget for maintenance of the roads and the stoplights and everything else around the island that had not had a lot of maintenance in about 20, 30 years because there were no funding available. The hurricane was an emergency, and it was a disaster. It was a tragedy for us in Puerto Rico, but it also allowed us to invest a lot of federal funds and state funds in the things that we need to make Puerto Rico's roads and transportation safe again. And I also got to work at the airports, which you all know are one of my favorite areas of transportation. So this is what I did for 4 years. It was amazing. I worked with the governor and his staff. The governor was a very nice man, very elegant, very calm, and I was honored. I'm still very honored that I got the opportunity to work with him and all the people that I did in the Department of Transportation. So anyway, so 28 years later, maybe last year, I think it's 29 years now. I told you all that I went to space camp in the 10th grade, and that was 1996. So it was 29 years ago. So last year, I had an amazing surprise because of everything that I told you all that I've done and that I worked on. I've kept in touch with the people that I worked with at NASA in Huntsville. And in 2023, I wrote a proposal for my daughter's school so that my daughter and her school could go to space camp, and it was accepted. So my daughter went to space camp. I went to visit my friends in Huntsville, Alabama, and my coworkers from 22 years ago at NASA nominated me for the Space Camp Hall of Fame. And last year, I was inducted into the Space Camp Hall of Fame as the first Puerto Rican to ever be inducted. That was amazing. How cool is it that you get to go to space camp and then years later, as a professional, they induct you into the Space Camp Hall of Fame? I could not believe it. There's astronauts in this Space Camp Hall of Fame. I was with astronauts getting inducted in one of the most, to me, the most amazing things that I've ever done in my life, which is going to space camp and working at NASA. So last year, I got inducted. Last week, I went back to the alumni reunion weekend. We have an annual reunion weekend, and I found out that they're using a video of me talking to the space camp students, and once that graduate, that picture there in the middle is a video that they put into all the graduations, and I'm one of the speakers letting them know that now the future is it's positive and there's so many things that they can achieve now that they're space camp graduates. So that was a surprise. I knew I had recorded a video, but I didn't know they were playing it in the graduation for all space camp alumni that now graduate from the program. There's also a wall of honor for all the employees that have worked in the Marshall Space Flight Center, and that's the pictures on that big wall. Last week was the first time I got to visit it and see that my name was up there. I told you all that one of the biggest rewards is coming back to my island and being able to work in Puerto Rico. But when I went to space camp in 29 years ago, my family had to do a lot of fundraising because they didn't have money to send me. My mom is a retired teacher and my dad is a retired salesman. There was so much sacrifice for them to send me to space camp that that happened in the last year has been another great privilege of my life, but also a testament of how many amazing things can happen to us when we work hard, when we're humble, when we love what we do, and when we have passion for what we do. We also have to study and focus a lot on what we want, but there are no limits. And all of you are young, and I know that you can do amazing things. So the reason why I share all this is because I started in a very small town with very minimal resources. And I've had all these amazing opportunities in my career that STEM has provided me, but also the amazing things that happen when you keep in touch with friends and family and people that you meet at different places. You never know who is going to write you a letter of recommendation or nominate you for the Space Camp Hall of Fame. So I want you all to learn from this, and I want you all to take this in seriously so that in the future you can say, well, if she did it, I can do it too. And you guys can do some more amazing things. So as a Space Camp Hall of Famer, I am an ambassador for Space Camp, and I wanted to add this into the presentation and let you all know that if you want to go to Space Camp, you can from when you're 9 years old to 18 years old, if you're in elementary school to high school, and there are scholarships available. They open in September 2025 through November. My nephew, that's Derek, he just graduated from the Space Camp Advanced Academy, and he won the Endeavor Scholarship this year. And he went to space camp. He was the only student from Puerto Rico that won that scholarship and was able to go to Space Academy. He's there with me. It was the same week that the Space Camp Hall of Fame met. So I was able to be there with him. He met the astronauts. He spoke with them. He had them in his team. It was an amazing opportunity for a high school student, and now he wants to become a mechanical aerospace engineer. So I believe that this is the best opportunity for all of you to explore STEM further and to see if that's something that you like. So I will definitely be available if anybody else wants to talk a little bit more about Space Camp and the opportunities. So moving on, I am now Strategic Infrastructure Director for Kimley Horn, which means that I get to work on pretty cool infrastructure projects in the Caribbean, Latin America, the US, and Puerto Rico. And what that means is that I get to work not just in transportation, but everything infrastructure. So it means that it can be roads and bridges, it could be energy, it could be water, it could be anything that's infrastructure around us. So I'm having a lot of fun. It's a new job for me. I was telling Ms. Mary, I'm getting used to now being in this job and not having to work 24/7 with the media or the governor, but it's also a great job for me to continue expanding myself and my career. So before we end, I think that I told you all at the beginning that sometimes things happen that we don't really plan and that we don't expect. Well, in 2020, I had some pretty aggressive and life-changing news from my doctor. I was 29 years old. I was managing airports all around South Florida, and I had a great team of people working for me as an engineer, and life was good. But on September 13 of 2010, I was diagnosed with Hodgkin lymphoma, which is a type of blood cancer. It was stage 4. It was pretty advanced. And the other thing happening in my life was that I was pregnant with my daughter that you all saw in the photos. I was 7 months pregnant. And talk about life changing and oh my God, how do I react now? What happens? Am I going to die? Well, these photos are from my journey. I had to create a different plan for myself. I stopped working for about 2 years, and my company allowed me to take that time and take short-term and long-term disability so that I can feel and get better. The first time that I was out of the company was about a year, and I went back to work. My daughter was a year old, and I had a reoccurrence. So I had cancer again in 2012. And on July 9th of 2012, I had a stem cell transplant, an autologous stem cell transplant that saved my life. And today, I've been in remission for 13 years. So that means that I'm cancer free and have been for 13 years. And I always share this because sometimes things don't go as planned. We see people that are successful and we think that they're so lucky and wow, they've done so much and life for them has been perfect. It has not. We work really hard, so it's not luck, it's actually hard work and preparation and studying and making sure that there's a perfect opportunity and a perfect timing for what you want to do in your life. But this changed my life. It took me 2 years to recover from this experience. So I was not working. My daughter was born healthy in December of 2010, but it took me another year and a half to get better. So she is my miracle baby. And life after cancer has been pretty amazing, but it has been hard. And it also changed me and to think and to understand that there are more important things than work. So even though I love my job and you've seen all that I have a passion for what I do, that is not the most important thing in life. The most important thing in life is family and your health. So we have to take time and we have to take care of ourselves, our health, our family. There's definitely, hopefully, none of these things will ever have to happen so that you can understand what your priorities in life are. But it happened to me so that I could understand what was really important in life. And now I live even more intensely to do amazing things and help and give back because I have the opportunity to live and be here with all of you. So, what has worked for me? Strong communication skills. I am bilingual. I speak English and Spanish, but also not just being able to speak another language, but communicating and talking to people and not being afraid to say what you want so that when the opportunity comes along, even if you're not there, somebody will think, well, you know what? Mary, Elieen, Tara, Lee are actually great for this. Let's give them the opportunity. So we have to speak up. We have to have self-initiative. I think that when I was at Disney and I told my supervisor that I wanted to meet an engineer, that's why I got to meet an engineer because my supervisor at Disney said, I can help you with that. So don't wait for anybody to tell you what to do or how to do it. Have initiative, do it yourself. You are the one responsible for your success and your future. You will have amazing people that will help you along the way, like I've had amazing people. But at the end of the day, what we do and how we do our how we conduct ourselves and how we do our life is up to us. So follow through. You have to build on your credibility. You have to become an expert in a field, but also be able to adjust to change or be flexible to things changing. We have to control our emotions. We're women. So people will say that if we're too loud or too passionate, we are feisty. I get called feisty Latina, and I take it as a compliment. I don't take it as an insult, but we do have to control our emotions so that people will be able to work with us and we don't get that label of hard to work with. But never lose your passion because that's who you are. But learn how to control it. And if somebody makes you really mad, you don't yell, you don't cry, you don't scream. You go to the bathroom, you cry and scream over there, you collect yourself, and then you come back. That is going to take you all a long way. First impressions matter. So everything that you are, and like if you get to a job or an interview, people don't know how amazing you are until you sit down and talk to them. But they will make or have a first impression. So always be very polished, be on your best attitude. Attitude is very important, but also take care of your physical appearance because when people meet you, your face and what you're wearing is the first thing that you see. And it's not that you're going to be obsessed with how you look, but also take care of yourself because first impressions do matter. Have a good attitude, be influential, and yet the enthusiasm does roll off. Write thank you letters or emails because now we have email and social media. But those are important. That's how I've kept in touch with my friends and family and coworkers from so many years ago at NASA and at every place that I've been. You keep in touch. That's how you build relationships with people. That's how Miss Mary and I have been friends for so long, and we met through the Society of Women Engineers. So we've been friends for many years because of that. Don't be afraid to be the first one or the only one. That can happen, and it could very much likely happen in STEM, but that means that you're going to become the role model for other girls and other people to follow. It is very intimidating sometimes, but if you are prepared and you know your stuff, you will earn that respect, but you have to work probably 2 to 3 times harder to pretty much earn that respect. But do not be afraid because you are all deserving of better opportunities and good jobs and amazing success, but you have to work hard at it. Update your resume, you create one. I know that a lot of us could help you with that and set some goals. Where do you want to be? What do you want to do? Write them down. That helps me visualize it. Even create a vision board. I have those and I work with it, and it has changed in the last few years, but that's good because you can do one every year and you'll see how your goals and how your dreams will change or be adjusted, but you probably will always be very consistent on what you want to do. Always have a hobby. And self-care is really important. You have to have fun. Remember what I told you about life-changing experiences. Your health is very important and your family as well. And now that you're here in this camp, share it with your teachers. Share it in social media if you have social media. That's positive visibility. And the more that you share that, when there's other opportunities, people will think of you. I know you all have YouTube or you have been at YouTube. If you look at TEDx or the TED Talks, and you search my name, you probably will find a TED Talk that I did a few years ago. But you've all heard my story. It's pretty much his story, but in 15 minutes. So this is a picture I like to share at the end. We're stronger than what we think. This is in 2011. My daughter was 3 weeks old. I didn't have hair, but she did. And this is a picture we recreated in 2019. Now she's taller than me, so if we recreate 2025, I will probably be the one that she's hugging. And remember, mom and dad, this is where we want to see ourselves. This is actually me when I graduated from my master's. But this is how mom and dad are always going to see us. So have some patience with mom and dad or whoever is taking care of you and loving you and being sure that you become the successful engineer, scientist that you're going to become. But always remember to have patience and keep in touch with them and call them and let them know that you want them to help you and give them space because they'll always want to call you and make sure that you're doing okay. And just think that they love you and they want to see you succeed. So I always put this picture up because I think that we always want to be independent and we want to go off. But this is how mom and dad are always going to see us like a baby. And that's actually me and my kindergarten graduation. So thank you all. This is my email, and you can also find me on LinkedIn if you have an account. But you can send me emails at Gmail, and I always answer or try to answer in a reasonable amount of time. But I can be here available for you if you all want to ask me questions or if you just want to let me know how you're doing or what your plans are. I love hearing from the people that I present to. And a few of the past, well, actually, a lot of the past Tech Trek alumni have kept in touch with me throughout the years. So I'm serious about the email. And if you do email me, I will do my best to help you and keep in touch. So gracias a todas y mucho éxito. And I'm gonna get out of this so that you can ask me whatever you want.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Eileen. That was so, as always. We are honestly great on time in terms of 15 minutes for questions and
Perfect.
answers. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to put it in the chat or raise your hand.
Mhm.
We'll call on you.
Goodness, I see the chat growing. Whew.
Yes, they're all saying thank you.
Well, thank you all for being here and for listening to me. I hope that you enjoyed my story. We all have different stories, and we all are going to have different stories, but that's okay because that's what
So
has
my
it to
first
be.
question to you is, how long did it take for your hair to grow back?
Oh my God! So let's see. I lost it 3 times. So shaved my head, my hair, and my transplant was in 2012 in July. To get to like this point, it was about 2 years. I mean, it's been 13 years now, but I think that to like this length, it took about 2.5 years. But it came out curly, super curly and super dark. And it's never gone back to the same color, but I don't care. It could have come back green and I would have been happy. But yeah, it took about 2.5 years and the texture changed and is completely different now. I had it down to my waist at a certain point in the last 13 years. But now I just keep it shorter because it's thinner and it's a different texture and it's okay. It's just hair.
Yes, you're right. You're right.
In the grand scheme of things, I love the look because I felt like G.I. Jane. I was like, bring it on. So I got you, Miss Mary.
Yeah.
Someone asked me, where do I come in? I worked in Kimley Horn, and yes, I'm in Puerto Rico. I'm in Guaynabo, Puerto Rico, so I'm home. I'm back home, and I will probably stay in Puerto Rico for the next 4 years until my daughter graduates from high school. And when she graduates, we'll see what else comes by. I mean, we'll see. My story is not done yet. There's a lot more to do. These all great things that I've been able to do, and all these opportunities are amazing. But the amazing thing about achieving your goals is that you set a new one and then you want another one. You have to enjoy the ones that the present and what you're living right now. But the great thing about achieving all these things is that you continue to set new goals. And then right now, I'm very happy where I am and what the work that I'm doing and very grateful and honored for everything that I've gone through in my career. But I know there's more. So I'm excited to see what else comes by in the next 4, 5, 10 years, or who knows when I can retire, but not now. I think that there's so many more opportunities and so many more things that I can do in my career. It doesn't all have to be technical. As an engineer, you can do business, you can do marketing, you can do outreach. There's so many things you can do as an engineer.
All
What
right.
would you be
Bella also has her hand up.
Yeah.
It's kind of a nonsense question. All of the girls in chat have like a great question, but um it's so nice to hear from you again this year. I always love hearing you talk. Your speech is great. But I noticed this year that you moved around a lot more than I remember, like traveling. So like how often in a year do you generally travel?
Wow. So in the last 5 months, I think I've traveled 2 times per month, probably. It's about 10 times already. It's not completely normal to travel that much, 2 to 3 times per month. But because I'm starting this new role, uh, I'm going to presentations and different conferences and meetings and helping other people around the firm with their pursuits and their projects. And so it's required me to move around a little bit. When I was with the Army Corps of Engineers and I was a young engineer, I didn't have my daughter and I was starting my career, I traveled all the time. I lived back and forth in North Dakota and Grand Forks, North Dakota for about 2 years. That was required a lot more traveling. I think that as you progress in your career, you can decide how much travel you want to do. If you don't want to travel, you don't have to. I like to travel, and it's required for my job, and I enjoy it. But yes, in this first few 5 months that I've been in this new role, I have, and probably until December, I'll probably have about 1 to 2 trips per month. So this year will be very active.
Thank you.
Sure. My goodness, let's see. I can see. Let's see.
We'll have to talk about North Dakota at some time. I didn't realize that you were actually in North Dakota in Grand Forks, huh?
Grand Forks Air Force Base.
For
Yes,
2 years. So you went
about
through
two
the
years.
winter up
Yep.
there. Wow.
It was very cold. For me,
Yeah,
as
it
coming
is.
from Puerto Rico, I was like, what am I doing here?
Now, for those of you who have never been to North Dakota basically is the road system is built on right angles. So everything roads, you go 100 miles this direction, and then they just say turn right. And then you'll eventually come to a city.
Yes,
So it's a very interesting
it is.
place to
I
drive.
had never been. I had never been, and I was so there's culture shocks of when you move completely from where you used to, right? I had a culture shock when I moved from Puerto Rico to Alabama, and then one when I moved to Mississippi, and then another one when I moved to North Dakota. And I was coming back and forth from North Dakota to Mississippi because I was already working with the Army Corps of Engineers. So it wasn't home, but I did go up there a lot. So it's okay. I mean, you do have these culture shocks when you change everything that you know. I adjusted, but I also decided, and that's why we moved from Mississippi to Florida to West Palm Beach. We wanted to be closer to Puerto Rico, and we wanted to be in a place that was more similar to home. And you have to make those decisions when you start working. It's not just about how much they pay you or the job. You have to be happy when you go home too. So we decided to move from Mississippi to Florida because we wanted to be closer, and Florida was more like Puerto Rico. So those are decisions that we have to make through our careers. Somebody is asking me here why I decided on engineering. Well, as I mentioned before, civil engineering, at least that part, I was really good at math and science, and I started participating in math and science camps when I was in the 8th grade. And I started liking math and science, and the teachers guided me through engineering. And when I took an aptitude test in high school, I decided civil engineering because it was the engineering that most impacts society and all our quality of life. Because if the roads aren't working, then we don't have a good life. If the water doesn't come out of the faucet when we open the water in the morning, that's also civil engineer, then our lives are not happy. Everything that a civil engineer does is so that we have a comfortable life. Everything that engineers do as well. We're the silent heroes of society. So I wanted to do that. I wanted to have that positive impact in people's lives. I don't regret it. I also wanted to go into communication school to become a CNN anchor. I wanted to be a reporter, and I wanted to be a journalist. I've done a lot of the communication, but as an engineer. I don't think I'm going to go work for CNN anymore unless they let me do like an engineering session at CNN or Univision or Telemundo. But I enjoyed that part a lot. And I told you all that I used to dance. I like performing arts. So it was another career option, but I decided to do engineering. But the communications background, and I've done some communications training, has definitely helped me become a better engineer. So you all have to balance the really technical side of engineering or just STEM careers with business and marketing and communications. Public speaking is super important because we have to communicate with the world. We have to let them know how valuable our projects are and the work that we're doing. So remember that too when you're going to high school and college. Become an all-around professional, not just the technical side.
I
Goodness,
thought Zoe had a question, but we lost her. I don't know where she went.
someone's asking me that they checked me online. They Googled me, and they said that it said that I was an author. I have published technical papers on the work that I have done with the military and with Kimley Horn. So technical publications, yes, I've done those too. Someday I will write a book because that's one of my goals in life, and I'll become a published author, but on my story. We'll see. That we might be a year from that, but that is something that I really want to do someday. I think it would be pretty amazing. What color was my hair? My hair was more reddish brown. I was more red. My brother is a redhead, so as a little girl, I was more red. Now it's like brown, like with highlights. I don't dye my hair. It's just this color is natural. But yeah, my hair was more red than brown. I don't mind it. You know, like I told you all, if it would have come out green, I was just happy to get my hair back.
I get that.
Yes. What are some things that I got to do in the space camp? Well, space camp, they train you as an astronaut. And I went 29 years ago, so it's a little different program now than what it was. But you get to go on missions. The shuttle missions are not the same anymore because there's no shuttle program anymore. But you get to be the pilot or commander or the payload specialist or a scientist on missions to go to Mars or the moon. You learn about centrifuge. They have simulators. They have airplane simulators where you get to pilot planes. They put you into microgravity chairs so you can see how it feels to walk in microgravity. You learn about space rocks. I mean, it's pretty amazing. I mean, for me, it was life changing. I knew I wanted to work at NASA and become an aerospace or aviation engineer. And right now, with all the artificial intelligence going on in the world, NASA and Space Camp are doing even more amazing things in the different modules and simulators. So what I did 29 years ago is not necessarily what they do now, but it's very similar. They have a buoyancy tank now, so you actually get to do underwater diving, so that you can feel how the astronauts train in the buoyancy tanks, and that wasn't available when I was at Space Camp, and I think that's pretty cool. How many years of college did I do? 5 years for bachelor's degree and 4 years for master's, because I worked in the Army Corps of Engineers at the same time that I did my master's. But typically, you can do your master's in about a year and a half. It took me longer because I was not a full-time student. My employer paid for my graduate degree for my master's, but it took me a little bit longer. I don't regret that either. I think it was great because I didn't have to pay for it.
Yeah.
I don't think I can keep up here. I'm trying to see here what else is on here.
Well, you're catching up is what you're doing.
Oh, why did I apply to college in Mississippi? When I worked in the military base in Mississippi, Mississippi State University had a graduate institute for the engineers that work at the Army Corps of Engineers. So I decided to attend Mississippi State University and take my classes there in the military base. It was a great school. It was a really amazing opportunity too. I took classes at University of Alabama at Huntsville when I was doing my internship, and I also took some classes in the University of Florida in Gainesville. So I've gone to a few universities. My degrees are from Puerto Rico and Mississippi. When did I join SWE? I joined SWE in college in 2001. So I've been a Society of Women Engineers member since for 24 years. And I was even in the board of directors because someday, Miss Mary knows this, I want to be SWE president. I want to do that someday. Someday. We'll see when. But yes, been with SWE for the longest time, and I believe they're amazing for professional development. How did I get into space camp? With my school? My school was the one that put together the space camp group. But again, if your school doesn't go to space camp, you still can go, but then you would have to coordinate all that with your parents and space camp. But it's better if the school takes a group and you get to go to space camp with your classmates. And it's the whole year. They have space camp groups. It's a week long. You start on Sunday until Friday, and they have space camp all year long. The whole year there's a new class going in, several groups at the same time, and it's done in the U.S. Space and Rocket Center in Huntsville, Alabama. I did mine in Port Canaveral in Kennedy Space Center because that's where they did it many years ago, but now it's only in Huntsville, Alabama in the U.S. Space and Rocket Center, which is one of my favorite places in the world. There's a lot of hair comments here. Yes, we president. Yes, great. Well, if anybody else has another question and you don't want to ask here, I gave you all my email address. I'm gonna write it down here as well. Feel free to email me. I do reply, and I'd like to hear from all of you. If it takes me a little bit longer, I'll still reply. Be patient. But yeah, that's me.
Thank you so much. If everyone can say their thank yous again, that would be amazing. Um, Again, I feel like every time I listen to your talk every year, I'm so inspired. So,
Oh, thank you.
you.
And thank you
Thank
for always
you.
inviting.
Thank you. Thank you
Yes.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a lot of hearts. Well,
Thank you.
you all. So sweet.
I'm going to stop the record here just so that we